Can you see the what we will talk about today?
Almost.
Okay, let me increase the font for you. Can you see it now? Can you read it now?
Oh, I can.
Okay, welcome to my accessibility talk. So look at it again and think, does it look familiar? Have you ever seen something like this in the application that you are using on a daily basis? Or maybe more important question is, do you check if this is happening in the app that you are developing? Don't worry, we will check together later. So let me properly introduce myself. I'm Ania. I'm Polish. But I'm based in Berlin and I work in N26. N26 is a mobile bank. I work in the Insights team, so the team that is providing users with statistics on their income and spending. And back to the topic, okay, we will talk about accessibility. And the reason why I want to talk about accessibility with you is simply because I think we don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about it enough in our companies, in our teams, in the iOS community. So I want to share my experience with you so far, and I want to show you how me and my team included accessibility into our workflow. I will tell you when do we talk about it. I will share with you a great accessibility checklist that helps us to find and fix accessibility issues, and show you the things that we actually found or implemented thanks to the fact that accessibility is indeed a part of the process and conversation when we develop new features. Okay, so let's start with the introduction. Accessibility is a very broad topic, so I'm sure I will not be able to cover all of it today. And I also think that we can look at accessibility from many different angles. So the angle that I propose today is great user experience. Of course, this can mean different things. Great user experience can mean different things to different people. But I think just this sentence in itself shows that if we want to keep as many users happy with our app, we should simply consider needs of different users that we might have. And how can we do this? One answer that I can think of is allow the user to receive the value of your app, receive the information in many different ways, so that the user can choose which way is his preferred one. But the biggest benefit of this approach is that it also enables people this choice of having different ways enables other people to use your app in the first place when their abilities prevent them from consuming content in all the other ways. So not to be too ambiguous, I will give you an example of giving the information in two different ways. I will show you what my team is working on a daily basis. And what kind of information we provide to our N26 customers in the Insights dashboard. And the first way will be auditory, so you will hear the dashboard first, and then you will see it.
Insights. Heading. Main account. Personal. Balance. Button. 1 of 2. Selected. Expenses. Button. 2 of 2. Monthly budget. €630.70 left. 3 days to go. Edit the spending budget for the month. Button. Overview. Selected. Total spending in November is €1,200. Button. Categories. €720 in shopping, which is 60% of total spending. Button. €480 in subscriptions and donations, which is 40% of total spending. Button. Recurring payments. You have 0 upcoming payments, in total €0 left to pay. Button.
And here you can see exactly the same information that you just heard, but in the visual form that I think you are more used to or more familiar with. So to close my introduction, I'll give you my personal definition of accessibility, which is taking into consideration different abilities that people have and providing great user experience by empowering the user to consume the content in the way that fits their needs and their preferences. And to me personally, as an engineer, this means that I bring real value to the user. To me as a person, it means that I'm doing the work that is aligned with my values. So accessibility to me is just a part of my definition of done. And when I was preparing this presentation, one of my colleagues asked me, like, what is my personal connection to this topic to be more relatable in this whole presentation? But I think he asked because I mentioned that my mom is using a bigger font in her phone. But to be honest, to me, it's not about one person. It's simply because I care about other people. I don't know personally anyone who is blind, but it doesn't stop me from caring, from wanting to deliver high quality applications that are accessible. I care that blind people can use it, colorblind people can use it. I care that someone who broke their arm or had eye surgery and has a temporary loss of some abilities can still receive the same value and great user experience from my app. And that nobody is excluded. So, okay, let's get into some knowledge sharing. I want to show you how we included the accessibility into the process, and I will do it by answering 3 questions. So let's start with responsibility. Who do you think should start the topic of accessibility in a team?
In my opinion, it's product owner or something like that.
Okay, you said the product owner?
Yeah, product owner.
Okay, do we have any other opinions?
You?
Me? But me in your company? Okay, I think I have a lot of places to visit now. Okay, any other?
I think it depends, because when you get the story to complete, you as a developer often have different ways to prepare the story. So you actually can already mention, hey, we can do it like super simple, but we can introduce the accessibility. For example, now I work at the company that's like very heavy into accessibility. So
who is responsible?
So now I think it's like every new feature we do, we know that it has to be
accessible.
So let's say
so it's
I spent a lot of time creating a new onboarding flows, and I think around like 40% was because of accessibility.
So it was a product decision.
It was the product decision, but I wasn't told. I mean, you have to do this accessible. It was just known that we are supporting the accessibility. So the apps I'm working on are sleep apps. And I think a lot of people are older people who use them. But in that sense, I think everybody is responsible for it. Because now that I'm aware of it, when I do like other apps, I already look into. That's why I also come to this topic.
Okay, great. So my answer was actually also everyone. But then I thought, if everyone is responsible, then no one is. So I have a new answer for you. And my new answer is you, but in sense of you, not me. I mean, me as well. But each of you. I think that each team member can bring up different proposals, so why not about accessibility? Maybe there is a lack of awareness in your team, so you can make this first step and bring the topic to the team. And also I want to make it clear that even though I say you can be the person who brings the topic, doesn't mean that you have to do everything on your own. It's just about making this first step and see where it can take you in the future. So when to talk about it, what works in my team is starting the topic as soon as possible, which in our case means that we start in the refinement meeting. We see the design, we talk about some business logic, and this is also a good moment to talk about accessibility on a high level. So, for example, we talk about how do we imagine the voiceover to read out the content, should we group some elements, should we hide some elements from from voiceover, will the navigation be straightforward, and then the next meeting where we can talk more about the actual implementation is a kickoff meeting. And in my team, we always write down the requirements also for accessibility, so that first of all, we are all on the same page, and second of all, so that it will be tested later. And this is also where we discuss, for example, differences between the platforms, because we support iOS, Android, and web. So there might be some differences, and we look for compromises, or we look for different solutions if some things work differently. And we end our kickoff meeting always with a set of questions to ensure that we didn't forget about anything. And one of the questions is about accessibility details. And having it in this template ensures that, first of all, no one is responsible for always bringing it up. It is just a part of the process, just another question that we ask. Same as we discuss the backend contract, feature flags, or, I don't know, new endpoints. So in my team, the refinements and kickoffs work very well right now. Does it mean that this is the best way? Probably yes for my team, but probably not for everyone. So I think the best meeting that you can talk about accessibility is the one that suits your team best. I'm sharing my experience because maybe it will also work for you. You can get inspired from this and try it in your team, but I also encourage you to adjust, to change if you need to, so that it works best for the process that you have in your company. Okay, and now I will discuss some common concerns that people have when the topic of accessibility is opened, and the things that I heard the most often, and the things that I discuss almost on a daily basis. And all of those concerns I want to mention are valid. All of those concerns are things that I also thought myself. I'm just encouraging you not to think of them as blockers. So let's go through some of them. First one, very common, is I'm not an expert on this topic, and a very similar one, I don't know how it should work. This is completely understandable. This is how we feel when we we get into contact with something new. But on the other hand, think about the nature of our work. It's literally learning new things all the time and Googling stuff. So why not about this? Did you ever think, I cannot make an app in SwiftUI because I never did it before, because I don't know how it works? No, you just Google and find out, and you learn. So we can apply the same logic to accessibility, and you don't have to be an expert to start. You can improve as you go. I think the most important step is that you start and improve as you go. And I have one example of a feature in my team that was not accessible at all because we simply didn't know how to make it accessible. And with time it changed. So yeah, I will show you this example later. Let's go to the next concern. It should come from the product people. It's a super nice excuse to just throw responsibility at someone else. It's a tough one because I also agree with this, because if it comes from if it's a product decision, then probably it will be also considered on the design level. There should be probably more processes set up around this already to support it. But again, in my view, it doesn't mean that even if it doesn't come from your manager or your product owner, doesn't mean that you cannot make the effort to make your app accessible. Because in this presentation, I want to share and I want to focus on the things that are in our control. Other teams are not doing it is something that I heard super often in my team when we started pushing more for accessibility. And I like this sentence because we can look at it in two different ways. One is other teams are not doing it, so we also shouldn't. And the other one is other teams are not doing it, so we can set an example, we can share our knowledge, we can make it more common in the company to have this process. And it's really up to you how you decide to see it. It will take too much time. Who heard this one? Okay. I really believe that this argument only exists because we treat accessibility as an option and not as a requirement. Of course, development takes time. But very often, when we consider accessibility properly from the start, it really doesn't take a lot of time. Like I see it now in my team where we went through some things and really some decisions are very obvious. We talk about, okay, do we hide, do we group? It's a one-liner in the code. So really doing it properly from the beginning takes less time than later finding and fixing bugs connected to, I don't know, auto layout or voiceover. So definitely doing it properly will take less time than fixing the bugs later. Okay, we talked a bit about the process. I would like to show you some resources that can make our life easier. We have a testing checklist that was created by a working group in my company of people who care about accessibility and wanted to improve the process. I think following a checklist is especially, it's always useful, but especially in the beginning when you are just starting, because it's like simply following the instruction. You make sure that you will not forget anything and that everything will be tested. So let's look what is in there. Can you see it? Okay.
Yes.
So labels, descriptions, I think very basic but very important things to test. In this screenshot, I think for example, you can see something that we do very often in my team, which is, for example, grouping all those things or hiding some elements. Like here, we would hide the profile icon because it doesn't bring any new information to the user. And we would group the elements because normally VoiceOver would go through name, the title, subtitle, amount. You need to swipe 3 times to access this information. Whereas if we group the information, the user swipes once and gets all the information from the VoiceOver. It's the same idea as we try to have as little clicks as possible to achieve some goal. I think it follows the same idea. So it's similar in the sense of providing good user experience for our users. And okay, there are a lot of things in this checklist. I want to say before we go more into this that of course all of them will not always be applicable to your use case. But still, I think it's better to mark something as not applicable than to remove it from the testing checklist and not have it when you actually need it in the next feature. Okay, so we are testing. By the way, I will share this checklist later, so don't worry. We check the elements that could have a state. We check buttons, warnings, the point of hiding elements that I actually do quite often. Testing navigation, ensuring that the user can reach all elements, that they can go back, forward, select stuff, and click on the buttons. And then we are testing the font size, so we make sure that what you saw in the second slide doesn't happen and that everything is resizing as it should. One more thing to test this, if you don't want to do it manually, is to include the dynamic type in your snapshot test, if you are using snapshot tests. This is also what we are doing. And making sure that we respect the motion preferences of the user. And we have this checklist in every single feature that we develop, and this is part of every testing that we do. So when we are going through the checklist and something fails, we open the bug ticket the same as we would do for anything else. And of course, then you can maybe go on some compromises with your team if the accessibility bug will be fixed immediately or if you will do it later. But of course, I recommend that it's just done as part of the story and the feature that you are working on. Okay, this was the checklist. Also, you will see this later, but you can scan now, of course. I am sharing this because I believe that this brings a lot of value. I hope that if you are also able to use this in your teams and you will start testing accessibility, that you can find a lot of things. So, yeah, I want to share it with the world. And now maybe more interesting things is what we have found thanks to the fact that we are using this checklist and that we are testing accessibility regularly and with every feature since some time. So here we have the expenses overview chart. I increased the font once, and well, the month labels were either cut or not visible at all. And well, sometimes we also need to make some compromises, I would say, because the fix that we implemented here was actually limiting how much those labels can grow so that they are still visible. But I know that limiting how much a text should resize is not the most recommended way. I think this was the best we could do without any design changes, because you can also adjust the whole layout depending on the content size. So for sure, this can be improved further. Next one is the example that I mentioned before. This was not accessible at all. I didn't know how to make a line chart accessible. So we made a conscious decision to hide it completely from VoiceOver, because we also didn't want some unexpected state where VoiceOver goes through. Here in this chart we have a data point for each day in the last 6 months. So just imagine this nightmare of user navigating through every data point of 180 data points. So we decided to hide it completely until we find some better way to make it accessible. And well, this actually happened because one day I came across audiographs. They were introduced in WWDC in 2021. And so to me, this was a very exciting discovery. And this also an example of that we can improve as we go. So I watched the video and then I implemented the audiograph for this line chart. And before I show you how it works, I will tell you so that you are not surprised. Basically, how a VoiceOver user will... how it works is that the VoiceOver user will hear a sound, either higher or lower pitched, depending on the value on the chart, so that they know how the value of their balance was changing throughout the 6 months.
Current balance is €46,551.54. Audio graph available. The x-axis is months. The y-axis is balance. There is one data series. Describe chart. Play audio graph. Chart details. Balance evolution chart. Play audio graph.
Okay, this was the audio graph. And the last example, my favorite, because it's finding issues in the components that are owned by other teams. So, so I can give it to them. So in this case, what we see here in all of those examples is a 3-item container. This is a part of our design system. And it's a component that we are really using. It's one of the most used components in our app. And as you can see, when we increase the font a bit, or when we increased in the past, it was not really readable. And so when I did some testing in the Insights dashboard, I found this. I sent it to the responsible team who is owning this component. And to my surprise, actually, it was prioritized quite quickly. And my colleague, who is in charge of the design system for iOS, implemented a fix but in SwiftUI, which the whole app is not using SwiftUI yet. We are transitioning. But this, to me, was just one more. It just encouraged me more to keep creating new views in SwiftUI from now on. And this example also shows that we don't have to do everything alone. You are not, even if you care about this topic, it doesn't mean that you have to do all the work in the whole company or in the whole team. You can also delegate work to others, and together it's just, you can achieve much more. Of course, I know that not all of you will have a design system in your company, but if you do, you know that a great benefit of the fact that this is a part of our design system is that this fix, that it was fixed because of the issue that I reported in our part of the app, will also be fixed in all other parts of the app where other engineers are also using the same component. So we are also fixing other parts as a, I don't know, you know. Yes, yes. Yeah. So those were our findings. I hope you found it interesting. Our app is not fully accessible and it's not perfect, so we are still working on it, but I think we are improving more and more and spreading this knowledge to other teams as well. So now let's do some investigation together. I would like to do a little experiment with you. So I would like you to take your phone and check if your favorite app is accessible. We can do it with the example of increasing the font size. At least on iOS, this is how you do it. You have to go to Settings, Accessibility, and Larger Text. Sorry, I didn't prepare for Android.
Let's try Android too.
Yes, 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 absolutely, yes. I just don't have the example of how to increase the font on Android phone.
Inside of the app or where?
In the device settings, it's probably in the device settings, accessibility, and larger text.
Well, I'm switching bank. My bank app does not support it at all.
Okay.
I'm joining N26.
Did anyone find something interesting? By interesting, I mean, did something break? Or can you read everything? Is everything?
So I just saw that the Polish app, I think it's Polish, Audioteka, didn't react at all.
Okay.
Messenger works.
It's probably written in JavaScript.
Audioteka is probably cross-platform.
Yeah, it's probably JavaScript. Yeah.
And what about this stuff? It should be bigger or not?
I have side project apps, and one is for sports app, and I added accessibility, but it was like buggy, and I got email from a member that they cannot finish onboarding. And there was the problem with the scroll, that the continue button.
But this, I think this kind of feedback is very useful because, when we get feedback from our users about accessibility, it just shows us that it's for those people who think accessibility is not important, etc., that there are people who are blocked or cannot use your app properly because of it. So yeah, I wanted to say, I know that N26 is maybe not as popular in Poland yet. I wanted to say that if by any chance you were checking our app, that of course I'm open to feedback, and if you found something weird, you can say it to me or give feedback in our app. If you found something in different apps, I also encourage you to give feedback to the developers so that they see that this is an important topic, and maybe it will also push something in those companies to fix those things and to pay more attention to accessibility. Yeah, thank you so much for listening. This is what I wanted to show you. If anything that I said today encouraged you to start implementing accessibility or make it a bit better, then I guess my mission was successful. Also, I'm open to questions, but I also put together some resources for you if you want to more know about accessibility. There are some links. I know you cannot. I will share. Now, if you scan this, you will have access to both the links and the accessibility checklist. This is in Google Drive, so there you will find all the links to the talks and to the accessibility checklist. I hope that it will be also useful to you. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn or on X, Twitter, then yeah. Also, please do, and we can talk now in the break. If you have any questions, then I can answer them now.
So I had two questions. First one, do you have the testers that are accessibility testers in your team?
So the question is, do we have testers who are accessibility testers? Do you mean people?
The people that normally using accessibility.
People who normally use accessibility? No. We test. All of us in my team is responsible for testing their own thing. We also have a quality engineer who is also keeping an eye on those things. But right now we do not have people who are using accessibility on a daily basis as testers.
So I had work in Berlin too, and we had the accessibility app. There is an organization in Berlin, located in Berlin, that covers the people with the vision problem, with the movement problem. You can contact with them and they will help, because they are trying to help organizations like bank organizations and other public organizations to see if the work that we are doing is correct. And the second question is, you talked about the design system. Of course, everybody should be awareness about the accessibility, but after years that I'm working with the accessibility, I found that the best place to let the responsibility is the designers and the design systems that they are creating, because then we have one place, and as you said, if something will change in the component, it is spreading everywhere around the app. Did you implement something like that in your company?
So, yeah, I mentioned that we are moving slowly to SwiftUI, and right now we are also finishing moving the whole design library to SwiftUI. And I know that while this process was starting, also accessibility was considered on a design level already before the implementation. So then it was also implemented, and so now when we move and we move different screens to SwiftUI. A lot of things are like much easier. A lot of things are working out of the box. So yeah, it was considered. So I see it as a step in a good direction in our company.
Cross my fingers and perfect presentation.
Thank you. Here.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is, you mentioned that you use snapshot testing. My question is, do you also like upload the failed snapshots to your pull request pages? This is something that seems to be like problematic, especially with bigger projects. You know, somebody sees a failed snapshot tests, and to actually get the branch and compile the app, sometimes it takes. For the big project, it takes a lot of time. So my question is, if you have your support for this, and yeah, what are the thoughts?
We are uploading the snapshots in our PERs. Our app is divided into modules, so I'm not compiling the whole app at once. I mean, sometimes it happens, but not very often. And usually on the daily basis, I just use the module that is only connected to the part of the app that I'm working on. So I think this makes it easier.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, so my question was also about the snapshots. I was curious, so let's say you test various font sizes, but how involved are those tests? Because they take quite a long time, right? So would you check the snapshots of the screens for each type of the font, something like that?
No, how we do it is that when we do a snapshot test with the dynamic type, we test the standard size and the biggest size possible.
So one additional.
And then we check if everything resizes as it should in the most extreme scenario.
But then you need to probably also scroll a lot, right? In this huge font.
What do you mean scroll?
So let's say you use iPhone 13 and in standard font you will see it on one screen, but if you enlarge the font you need to scroll it 1 meter long. No, so
not really.
I was curious because we don't have those snapshots. We did consider them, but
I mean, if you run the snapshot test, you really just see the screen size stays the same. You just see maybe less content on it, depending.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So you don't care about the whole content.
No, we also do. You can make snapshot tests for a specific component on its own.
Okay, yeah.
So that's usually what we do. Yeah.
So give her a round of applause.
Thank you.